another little man.
The fault, dear Brutus.
Liftoff. The clock has started.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
This is not taking away people's guns. It has been enough.
Turn up your mind.
Patriots like Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio are already implementing LaPierre's vision.
A controversial Arizona sheriff has a plan for stopping gun violence in schools. He wants an armed posse of volunteers to stand guard.
I have decided to now send a posse out, the armed posse, to the schools.
Thank God. Because nothing reassures parents more than surrounding their kids with the kind of guys who have a lot of weapons and nothing to do on weekdays. These are the kind of reasonable solutions that we need instead of blaming the real victims, guns. You see, former NRA President Marion Hammer knows that outlawing assault weapons is really just another form of discrimination.
Banning people and things because of the way they look went out a long time ago, but here they are again. The color of a gun, the way it looks.
So sad. Banning a gun based on its color. I'm sure if Dr. King were alive, he'd be standing with the NRA.
If he wasn't shot to death. Yeah, I'm sure he would. So, just so you know, this Supreme Court is the very first Supreme Court in the history of the United States of America to say that you have a right to own a gun for personal use. I mean, never before this Supreme Court have we ever had a decision that says that the Second Amendment guarantees you a right to a gun. And even in the Heller decision that the Supreme Court overturned hundreds of years of regulations for guns, overturned a city, a state's ability to ban a weapon, to say that nobody has an inalienable right to own a gun. Justice Scalia, the Second Amendment does not apply to dangerous and unusual weapons. It also does not apply to long-standing prohibitions on the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, or laws forbidding the carrying of firearms in sensitive places such as schools and government buildings, or laws that impose conditions and qualifications on the commercial sale of arms. So here you have the Supreme Court, finagling some sort of a right that doesn't really exist and has been agreed upon by every court prior to the Alito, Roberts, Scalia, Thomas, crazy guys. Which is why it's so important that Obama is president, because, when we have a vacancy on the Supreme Court in the next 4 years, and I'm sure we will, that 5-4 could actually be turned on its head. But that being said, no one really is coming after your guns. What we are saying is what Scalia said. So in this way, no, I'm no different than the right wing. I am saying exactly what Scalia said, that dangerous and unusual weapons are not protected under the Second Amendment, and that any prohibition that we have against the possession of a firearm by a felon or someone who is mentally ill, who is getting a crazy check from Social Security or disability payment, or has been deemed unable to concentrate or focus, or has Alzheimer's or a memory problem, senility, things like that, should be banned from owning guns. And that all the laws that we have forbidding the carrying of firearms in schools, in government buildings, or any federal law that we have that imposes a condition or a qualifying event that has to happen before you can commercially buy a firearm, meaning a background check, is completely in line with the Second Amendment as interpreted by Antonin Scalia, is completely in bounds. That's what I'm saying. So where we draw the line is right now, like I said, Alzheimer's, senility, inability to focus, a disability that you are getting paid because you can't work, because you can't concentrate, you can't focus, you can't stand for long periods of time, you're unable to work, and you're getting a disability check for something that has to do with a mental reason that you cannot work, you can't have a gun. Oh, yes, I'm saying that, and so is the president. Oh, yes, I'm saying that if you're a felon, you shouldn't be able to go to a gun show where there's no background check. I'm also saying there should be no straw man purchases, meaning you're a felon, you hire somebody to go to a gun show because you don't even want to be seen in public buying guns, and this guy buys unlimited amounts of guns. I also think that every background check needs to be done for every single piece of ammunition, every clip, every magazine, every gun. Because remember, people, guns don't kill people. Ammunition does. So yes, that needs to be regulated. And no guns in school. No guns in school. There's a teacher in Utah that was interviewed last night on Ed's show. I don't know why I was watching MSNBC last night. My New Year's resolution was to listen to no conservative radio. And I haven't broken my resolution. I haven't listened to anything. Either coming to work or going home, I haven't listened to anything. So, I've kept my resolution so far, thus far. But I am watching the TV, I have to say. And last night, they just don't want to talk about guns so bad on Fox News that they were talking about, the president, the duly elected president of Egypt, being somebody worthy of, kind of, I don't want to say, but you can imagine where they went with this guy. They had the Michelle Malkin, there, and she was talking about how, a country elects their leader in democratically conducted elections, and they come up with somebody we don't like, and when that happens, we ought to retaliate. All right, So I couldn't take it. So I turned it off and I went over to MSNBC, and I happened to catch this interview with a Utah teacher who is considering packing. She wants to bring a gun into her classroom, and, just some basic questions needed to be asked.
How are you going to carry it? How are you going to store it? And are you worried that it might be accessible to some rambunctious kids?
Those are actually still questions. I mean, like I said, I just found out. So I'm a researcher. I'm not going to grab the first holster and gun I see and go to class. I want to feel comfortable that I'm not putting my students at more danger by carrying a gun myself.
Okay, she hasn't thought it through. She's out there as a person who can be booked for a talk show. She wants to be booked as a teacher in Utah who wants to carry a gun in school. And, of course, after being booked and being, asked a few basic questions like, how are you going to keep the kids from getting your gun, she hasn't really thought it through yet. Then there's a question about what kind of, reaction do the parents have to this plan?
What kind of parental reaction are you going to get?
Well, I'm a parent myself, and just putting myself in parent shoes and listening to the news report, boy, I wish those teachers had a gun.
But what about the other parents? They may not see it the way you see it. Do you think that they would feel comfortable knowing that the teacher has got a firearm in the classroom?
I think the parents that know me know that I love their children and that I wouldn't put them at risk in any way.
So you don't think a firearm in the classroom would put anyone at risk, that it would be a much safer environment?
I absolutely wouldn't. I wouldn't consider carrying one if I didn't feel like I could do it safely.
But she hadn't thought it through yet, she just said. She just said she hadn't thought the safety issue through. But, when you press people on a position that they've decided to hold, they start out sounding fairly reasonable. Well, I haven't thought it through, and I don't know if I'm going to do it, but I'm not going to grab the first holster and pistol, But as a parent, I have to say, I wish those teachers had a gun. You realize what's going on here? We're in an arms race between criminals, between mentally incompetent humans, between between drug-addicted humans, between, people who are mentally incapable of being in the military, people who are Section 8s, people who have been in the military and through no fault of their own are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and are jumpy and, just not able to sleep well and are going through periods of depression and other things associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. And, of course, teachers who are grappling with this issue. How do I keep my kids safe? And, of course, the answer would be you don't allow semi-automatic weapons to start a arms war between these people and law enforcement. But she thinks it's carrying a gun, and she doesn't want to tell the parents because she says she doesn't have to.
What if you had a parent who objected to it? What position would that put you in?
Well, in the state of Utah, a parent doesn't have to know about it. Teachers can carry a firearm, and they've been doing it for 12 years. I've found out more and more about teachers that do and employees of schools that do.
They've been carrying guns? Teachers have had guns in schools for 12 years in Utah?
Yes, it's been legal to do that for 12 years.
And parents haven't known about it?
Right.
So I just thought it was my duty to tell you that you should know about it. You should know that you may be sending your kindergartner, and she is a kindergarten teacher, into a school where there's a gun present in the classroom.
Do you think parents have a right to know? For instance, if my child was in your classroom, do you think that I would have a right to know that there is a firearm in that classroom?
Well, if somebody, I personally would feel okay with any of the teachers I know, and any teacher that I've ever met. But I'm talking about the parents. I want to focus. I mean, the parents are dropping their little kids off to a school, and they don't know that there is a firearm in the classroom. Do you think they have a right to know? Not necessarily.
No, you don't. You don't have a right to know. The gun is more important than the parent in this scenario. And, of course, I'm sure she's a lovely lady, and I'm sure she's a great teacher. She just is misguided. But didn't we just play you a report where James Tracy, who is a professor at FAU, is teaching his kids that Obama staged the whole Newtown event, that he hired crisis actors to pretend that they were these children and that he doesn't really 100% believe that 20 kids died that day? Didn't we just have in South Carolina a teacher who was suspended because he was trying to teach First Amendment, rule, the right of free speech to his class, and he stomped on a flag to show that you can't be punished for stepping on a symbol, that the right still exists to speak freely. And, of course, he was fired. So, there's different standards in every... Utah, apparently, teachers have been packing for 12 years. And parents have no right to know. Wow. 19 after.
Randy Rhodes. Radio.